Welcome to the Tuesday, August 30th, 2016 Selectmen's meeting. Very quick agenda. 7 o'clock, Roger Hill, DPW Director, discussion, revote on order of taking Elm Street property, WT Cook property. 7:05 will be continuation of the MPS LLC public hearing. Discussion vote, Bruce Springsteen concert application. Chris, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roger?
What's this? Got that back? I banned that. This is one of those simple things. Unfortunately, when you do an order of taking, it has to be recorded in the registry of deeds 30 days following the vote. And so we need to re-vote it and sign it, and I'll get it recorded tomorrow.
So nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed.
Yeah.
Move to accept the amended proposal?
No, it's not amended.
Oh, isn't the timeframe
Just move
different,
to,
or-
move to approve the order of taking.
Oh, move to approve the order of taking.
A second.
Motion made, second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Thank you.
Sir?
Thanks, Roger. We're ahead of schedule again. Any update on the sewer? One or two, I should have asked Roger when he was here.
He was, I know that they are working on it. The company is working on it. He said he was gonna give me a report, I think, this week, actually. He said that they are actively, he said you should hopefully have a report this month, or in September.
Can we follow up next week
Yeah.
at our regular scheduled meeting?
Could give you a couple updates. So this morning, Governor Baker was in the region and spoke to the Tri-Town Chamber, the Economic Development Committee, and saw the new film that we worked on with the three towns. He was very pleased and was very. They thought it was a great piece of work that had been done. He commented that this was that the House and Senate had just approved the new MassWorks program for next year, for next fiscal year. So it's actually, we've already applied for it in this round for the roundabout located over at the old Foxborough Plaza. So we have an application that's pending before them right now. So we put in a word for that to him, as well as. We spoke to him directly, wanted to make sure that, we have licenses that are pending right now. We want to make sure those get forwarded. I've been informed by Representative Barros and Senator Timothy that the licenses are moving ahead. They just forwarded to us some amended language that you'll see on your September 6th agenda for the Route 1 licenses. Apparently there was one amendment that was made by the House Counsel. So you'll see that, and then once that vote is taken, they'll push that right through and get that moving along too. But two of the licenses should be in the licenses on the Bradley's Plaza area. Those licenses have been approved. They're in the third reading in the Senate, and the license in the center of town are also moving along. Are also in the Senate now as well. So we're just waiting on the Route 1 licenses, and then once they get through the third reading, they get engrossed by both the House and the Senate. Then they go to the governor for signing, and we're hopeful that we'll get those back as soon as possible. So things are moving along actually pretty well at this point.
Good. Okay, at a little after 7:05, I'd like to continue the MPS LLC public hearing.
Jessinos with Gillette Stadium. Do you want me to take a step back and start from the beginning, or do you want to just stop right this as a continuation and pick up where we left off?
No, if you can start over.
Sure. So seeking a license for Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. We are requesting Wednesday, September 14th, with an event start time of 7:30 and an end time of 11:30. The show went on sale and sold out of all of its prime inventory very quickly. So right now we have about 41,000 seats sold. We think we'll get to about 45,000 seats in total. All of the seating is reserved with the exception of a small GA area with about 1,300 seating locations at the very front of the stage. As you know, Bruce Springsteen's been at the stadium, at the new venue twice. Both times they are relatively standard events. We don't see any increase in public safety issues. It's an older crowd, it's a more mature crowd. There's a lot of crossover between these fans and our football fans, so we see that there's a quicker egress in and out of the building, up and down Route 1, because these fans are a little more accustomed to using the contraflow lanes and the traffic patterns that we have set up for the venue. We have a full porta-john deployment, which is with the Board of Health right now. We're requesting to use the North Street access road for public safety vehicles and for our suite guests. There's no, I guess the interesting part of this show is that this is the last show of the tour. So Kenny Chesney ended his tour at Gillette Stadium last weekend, and now in 2 weeks, Bruce Springsteen will wrap up his tour at the stadium. And it has been a long show. He is playing 3.5 to 4 hour sets at all of his stops. Played a show in MetLife Stadium that was 4 hours last week. So we do anticipate it being a longer show than what we typically see at the stadium. There is I think probably the most interesting part about that is there's no downtime, there is no intermission, there are no openers. There's no filler in this show. It is just a set that long, which, if nothing more, is just really impressive. And so I think for the most part that covers it. Like I said, right now the only thing that's sort of in flux is just moving the balance of those tickets. We've got some promotions coming up over the next 14 days to try and fill up the top of the 300 level, which is where there's availability now. But other than that, I think that covers all the details with respect to this specific application.
George.
Thank you. I want to say first off, on behalf of the Stadium Advisory Committee, we would like to publicly acknowledge with gratitude for how you and the public safety officials last week, Chief Hatfield and crew, how you responded to the medical emergency of one of our fellow members. Mike is at home. He's doing well. He wanted to come tonight.
I thought we were going to see him, actually. Told him I was going to fire him if he showed up tonight.
And I want to say that he would not be alive today if it wasn't for your efforts.
That's right. Tremendous effort.
I thank you for that. In relation to our committee's review of the Springfield application, the Stadium Advisory Committee had basically a spirited discussion, as I think members here saw in Mike's dialogue, and it was centered around the 11:30 versus 11:15 closing time proposed in the application, end time for the concert, be it a midweek concert. And in the end, we unanimously recommended to the board that they approved this event application as submitted. And the factors that influenced our opinion were that there is a precedent for later midweek end times than 11:15 based on the 3 Patriot games that you have on Thursdays and Monday and such, even during this season, as well as other concert events based on their particular aspects. When we looked at the particular aspects of the past history of Bruce Springsteen here, he has had no noise complaints in the last 2 times that he came here. The type of music that versus that he plays versus like a punk rock loud bellowing music, to us, it was a factor. Jess had mentioned the demographics of the attendees, and also the extenuating circumstances of it being the last concert of the tour and what he might want to, do. And lastly, our feelings were that it's a fall concert. It's a September midweek concert versus a summer concert, which, less potential that if, the impact on the, open windows, if what have you, in the neighborhoods. But based on those recommendations, and there were members that when we started the discussion didn't feel that it was appropriate to recommend that. But, after our discussion, that becomes our recommendation.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, the 11:15 timeframe that keeps getting thrown around seems to me, with some research I've done, talking to people, going back to town meeting a couple of years ago, it's not set in stone anywhere that there's an 11:15 curfew. It's up to the building commissioner or his designee, according to Article 25 that was voted on. So I think the 11, I don't know. I mean, I'm only a year and a half on this board. I'd like to know where that 11:15 timeframe came from.
The only history that we have of it is that it goes back, we think, to about 2010, was that when it first was initiated, and then it was in response to a request, I believe, from NPS to extend the show, go from, I think it was from 11 o'clock at one time, it was then extended to 11:15. And then the 11:15 started to carry forward from that point. So, but again, it's the board it's clearly the board's discretion. You have that authority to set that time. It's not a town meeting action, it's the licensing authority's ability to set that time.
Did the board ever vote officially to have a curfew of always 11:15?
Not to my knowledge.
Well, Chris sort of answered the question I was going to ask, and is there a bylaw that says there's a curfew? But the way Chris put it, yeah, and I always thought there was for even my shorter time on the board. I just assumed it was a bylaw. So that was pretty enlightening when I heard that too.
No questions?
I do have comments from Selectman Capola, who's not here tonight. She did indicate that she had previously made plans for a vacation and thought that this was an off week from normal meeting time. Of course, in light of what happened last week, we had to change that time frame. So she wrote down her comments. She asked that I would read them into the record. So I want to make it clear that these are Selectman Capola's comments on this and not mine or any one other member of the board's. I had planned my vacation around the Selectmen's meeting schedule, and thus I am not in attendance this evening. However, I would like to make some comments in regard to the licensing of the Springsteen concert of September 14th, and I thank Town Manager Bill Keegan for reading them verbatim into the record. The main issue is the request for an extension of the 11:15 curfew on a weeknight. One consideration is precedent. the definition of which is an act or instance that may be used as an example in dealing with subsequent similar cases. At the initial hearing last Tuesday, before it was continued to tonight, the Stadium Advisory Committee used the precedent of the NFL games that was licensed by the Board of Selectmen, which run until midnight. But the 11:15 p.m. curfew as reason for granting the time extension for the Springsteen concert. That, however, is comparing apples to oranges. First of all, Gillette Stadium is an NFL venue of which the prime function is hosting NFL football games. Late ending times is a given for evening games played to a national audience. Licensing the late games is not precedent-setting in respect to other licensed events. Secondly, other events at the stadium are ancillary, not the main focus of the stadium, and require licenses with conditions set by the town through the Board of Selectmen. The 11:15 p.m. curfew has been in place for some time as a reasonable ending time for a venue in proximity to residential areas in Foxborough and surrounding towns. People have to get up at 4:35 a.m. to go to work or school. Loud music and fireworks at a finale can be disruptive, and concertgoers have to go home at some time. Residents have an expectation that evening events will end around 11:15, as has been the norm. Also, there is another aspect of the licensing issue. This is the first year in which a condition of the license is that if a licensed event at the stadium continues beyond the curfew and any ending time, a fine may be imposed by the Board of Selectmen. The purpose of the condition is for incentive to make sure that events end on time. In the past, curfew has been abided by with few problems. However, occasionally an event would go beyond the curfew. In response to these instances, the head of the Inspections Department, Bill Caspara, who oversees the license compliance of events, approached town meeting with an incentive plan that would fine the applicant for going beyond the curfew. The town meeting approved such a plan as a bylaw, but the Attorney General did not. However, the incentive plan could be made a part of the license conditions, and that is what the Board of Selectmen did. Therefore, each licensed event carries the incentive plan as a condition of the license. When a license is issued, there is full knowledge of the licensee and the Board of Selectmen that there is agreement on the license condition. To wit, if an event goes beyond the curfew, a fine may be imposed. A license condition is there to be followed, not there to be followed as long as it is convenient. This is an unusual year in that the Board of Selectmen has been asked to extend the curfew a few times. The Board of Selectmen denied the Guns N' Roses concert as it was 2 evenings during the week. As it turned out, both concerts ended after 11:15 p.m., but by majority vote, the Board of Selectmen decided to issue a warning rather than to set the fine procedure in motion. Second event was the recent Kenny Chesney concert, which was initially approved for 11:15 with no objection from the stadium. On July 26th and then on August 9th, the Board of Selectmen was asked to extend the curfew to 11 p.m. on Friday and 11:40 p.m. on Saturday for no compelling reasons stated other than it was a weekend. As it turned out, the concerts ended at 10:49 p.m. and 11:10 p.m., which was within the time limits of the original license request. But I believe that the extension had been asked by the stadium for the sole purpose of setting precedent for the Springsteen concert before the Board of Selectmen tonight and other future concerts. Thus, the SAC and the Board of Selectmen were maneuvered into extending the curfew by the licensee. At those points, the Board of Selectmen lost its authority in licensing stadium events, as it was made subject to the wishes of the licensee rather than the regulations of the town of Foxborough, and the Board of Selectmen demonstrated a willful disregard of the will of the town meeting, which initially approved the implementation of the fining procedure by issuing a warning letter to the Guns N' Roses event licensee, the stadium, even though the license conditions were violated twice. The Springsteen event's original license application said that the concert would start at 7:30 p.m. and run for 3.5 hours, meaning that it would end around 11 p.m., well within the license conditions of 11:15 ending. That is the information provided by the stadium to the SAC and the Board of Selectmen in the application. Unless there is a demonstrable, compelling reason for an extension, and not just because the licensee doesn't want to pay the fine if the event ends after the curfew, then the event should be licensed for the normal 11:15 p.m. ending time. Concerned residents in the vicinity of the stadium deserve no less. The Board of Selectmen is the licensing authority of the town. In order to have any relevance, it must be consistent in its conduct and adherence to the regulations. Exceptions must only be made in extraordinary circumstances, otherwise the exceptions become the norm and authority is lost. The tail should not be wagging the dog. And those are the comments of Selectman Virginia Coppola.
Okay. Being this is a public hearing, I'd like to open up to members of the audience who have comments regarding this application.
Hello, Mark Rivard, 166 Central Street. I have a little bias on here because I am a Springsteen fan, but I have more bias because I'm also a taxpayer in this town and a homeowner. I think if we start limiting some of these artists from having a few extra minutes in a concert, they're going to start coming here. They're just going to keep going to Fenway. And also, when you just said that there is no real bylaw that says 11:15, then what was just read is 100% inaccurate, because how can you be going against the bylaw when it doesn't exist? Thank you.
Betty and Dennis Finn. I think that Ginny did a very good job in summarizing how we have felt. We sent you an email in the past few weeks saying pretty much the same thing. I think that the neighborhood as a whole was really caught off guard. The assumption has been that the curfew of 11:15 has been the precedent. And when you gentlemen are talking about the fact that you've only known maybe 2-3 years on the board, et cetera, we have lived in our homes since 1979. That's how it has been. I think that is quite reasonable when you talk about towns, that other towns do have ordinances for disturbing the peace after 11 o'clock. On page 20 in the general bylaws of the town of Foxborough, it does mention from 7P to 7A, there is a noise disturbance ordinance, and that is not realistic, obviously, for concerts, but I think that, again, it is a school night, and even though the advisory committee is stating that football games have been allowed to go longer, it is very true that's mostly to accommodate television and the West Coast fans. Concerts are not televised. We do not need to accommodate that. As far as people having to get up at 4:30 in the morning, that is our time up. It is our norm. Many of us have to work on weekends, so I don't think that just saying it's fine on a weekend is going to fly very well with people like us who have to work weekends. It is a school night, and yes, windows may or may not be closed in September, but noise penetrates the windows. It doesn't matter. So I would respectfully request that you not become cavalier about just extending it a little more and a little more, because at this point, where does it end? We do have to accommodate the football games, but I don't think that we're going to lose any artists at 11:15 curfew. We've always had people come here. Mansfield and the Xfinity Center has no time attracting people with an 11 o'clock curfew. So I think it is a win-win for the neighbors who have to put up with the noise and already lose sleep with the football games. I don't think we need to lose any additional sleep, and it is not going to have a financial impact on the town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Edith Erickson, 91 North Street, Foxborough. I've been here since before the stadium opened. I would say to the Stadium Advisory Committee, when they talk about people not complaining, I don't know if you people know the word futility. There's a futility in complaining again and again and again, kind of like the boy who cried wolf. And so I would have complained any time we've had a concert, and I would have complained about Kenny Chesney because I couldn't sleep because they were in the parking lot till 1:30. Now, once the town had an 11 o'clock curfew, it was a wonderful thing. I could sit there, become tolerant, know that people were enjoying the concerts, and lots of people do and probably will always come out to the stadium for these, but it was always something that there was a deadline. And 11 was a great ending, and then suddenly it creeps up to 11:15. And now we're being asked to put up with this till 11:30, and as Mrs., I think it was Finn, a neighbor, said, it's also a school night. There is another issue. I believe in the stadium agreement that Putnam Road is only supposed to be used for a very limited number of events after the football games. And every single event, the cops are out there, people are turning in, and they're supposed to only turn in left down Putnam, and they're turning in right down Putnam. So that's another and separate control issue. But I would beg you to maintain the 11 p.m. curfew. And I would also say that if it means I have to come complain after every concert, I will. But I think that's both becomes very fruitless. So the stadium itself, the new stadium, I will commend them because since they've opened up, the noise has been better than the old Schaefer Stadium. And there have been a lot of good regulatory items that have occurred. But these concerts are not like the regular football. And hearing the other night that there were 3 evening games, that's absurd. We're still a town. We still pay the taxes. There is a toll on the fire and the police that no stadium can ever reimburse. There's this personal toll. It goes on and on and on. So I would beg you to stand back and to adhere to an 11:15 time. The young lady who made the presentation said that Springsteen himself went 3.5 to 4 hours, and he doesn't have any openers and he doesn't have any breaks. So I'm sure he would be happy finishing at 3.5 hours, and they can probably tell him to do so. Well, anyhow, please consider an 11 p.m. curfew and not 15 and not 30. So thank you.
Edward Lawton, 70 North Street, Foxborough here. Mr. Chairman, members of the board. You know, whether it's 11, 11:15, 11:40, you need to realize many events end with fireworks. And the rush of traffic coming out of the access road that leads to Payson Road, up over the hill of North Street, around Chestnut and Mechanic, and to a limited extent, 140 towards Mansfield and Cohasset towards Mansfield as well. Whatever time it ends, there's about another hour and a half of heavy rushing traffic, sirens, this and that. You know, I'm sure the folks that get up at around 4 o'clock go to bed probably about the same time I do. And you know, if I go to bed at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock and I get woken up at 11:30, damn, I've got the edge off my tiredness, and it takes me about an hour and a half to get back to sleep. So it's not just the concert. Springsteen's a great band. I love his music. If the wind is coming just right towards my farm, I can hear music. If it's going left or right, it's noise. But I really believe you need to stick to the 11 or the 11:15 because of the after the concert noise is going to be extended. And thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Linda Walsh, 8 Pond Ave. Just a couple comments that I want to say that hasn't already been said. I've lived in this town all my life, almost 55 years, Jim. Okay, not yet.
You can throw that out.
And my grandparents had the house on North Street. I know Mr. Lawton very well. We were all excited back in 1970 when they were coming here, and it was wonderful. And then as it grew and Mr. Kraft took over, it grew into his vision, and he's kept up with everything that he said he would do. We have Patriot Place. We're experiencing a lot of taxes here that we would have to pay as homeowners that are being taken care of. And just the concerts, in the newsletter it states $1.6 million this year. That's the highest since 2010, when it was 832. That to me says a lot for us, taxpayers, that we are able to have folks working in the town, getting great salaries, things being taken care of. All additional is for public safety, obviously. you know, when we live in a town like Foxborough, we all have our crosses to bear, whether it's, you know, the Foxborough company that I live right in between the two buildings, and there's always trucks going back and forth, and it doesn't matter if it's 8 o'clock in the morning, 6 in the morning, 11:30 at night, it doesn't matter. But those are crosses that we all bear. Some folks on Oak Street have to deal with trucks going down their street. Everybody has something to bear. Unfortunately, for 8 times a year, there's a concert maybe up at the stadium, which, as I said, brings in this year 1.6 million. So we have to negotiate a little bit. Now, some of the concerts didn't go over as they expected, but they're being proactive and saying that this is the way that Bruce has done it in the past, and we want to ask for an additional 15 to 20 minutes. I think 15 to 20 minutes to be able to encourage large bands like Bruce to come here instead of going to Fenway. That's what we want to do. And we want the Revolution to stay here and be more hospitable, I would say, so that if the Revs do go to Somerville, that the concerts don't go with them. Because I'm sure that Somerville would love to have $1.6 million. So that's my addition.
Thank you.
My hands in my pockets so I don't talk. Debbie Stewart, 44 Neponset Heights Ave. I just have a couple comments. I've been really mulling this over for the past week, and we have a wonderful appointed stadium advisory committee that hasn't always agreed 100% with what the craft organization wanted regarding concerts or any other venues up there. But I think we have a wonderful group of people who volunteer their time and do the work and vet things that come across them. And I think the fact that they vetted this to an 11:30 end time shows a great deal of forethought and discussion. Anyone who did watch the meeting last week saw how passionate Mike was. And I think maybe that passion overtook him a little bit. And I feel very badly about that, and I'm thankful that he's healthy. The other thing is, we have a wonderful chief of police. Wonderful chief of police. And now we'll have another one, I hope, who would never come in before you, and has never come before you, and said yes when he meant no. Or, yeah, we're going to have a problem. Or not say, yeah, we're going to have a problem here. He put more people on for Chesney because I believe he thought there could be rowdiness and everything else. It didn't happen. But he prepared for it. And he came before the board and said, I'm okay with this. Chief Hatfield is the one that's got to deal with, dare I say it, the drunks, that whole element that's going to come in. You're not going to have that with Bruce Springsteen. That's not the kind of crowd. My question is, and I'm sorry that Ginny's not here tonight because I would have put the question right to her. You have a stadium advisory committee. They're in place. They do their work, and yet you know better. And I don't think that that's right. I don't think it's respectful enough of the work that they do. So for 15 minutes, you know what? I hear the train go by 1:15 in the morning, 4:15 again in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. I hear it all day long from where I live. As Linda said, we all have crosses to bear. And I'm sorry, 15 minutes isn't going to make that big of a deal. I think that it's the last concert of the season, and yes, you have traffic. But you have traffic that comes out after football games. You have to deal with that too. So what difference is if a football game gets out at midnight and you're dealing with traffic, or you have a concert that ends at 11:30 and you're dealing with traffic. So I don't get it. I don't get what this big thing is. And I asked Linda, and again, it is not a bylaw. She doesn't know where that came from, that it has to stop at 11:15. And somebody just put that out there and everybody ran with it. So that's all I'm gonna say. But I wanna thank you, George, and please go back to the Stadium Advisory Committee and say that I know they got a lot of letters this week. None of them had my name on it, but they got a lot of positive letters and maybe a few negative letters. But I stand by the advisory committee on this one, and I thank you for the work that you do.
For our time.
And you
Thank
too, Jess.
Thank you. Any more comments? Any more?
Just one if I could, please.
Sure.
Dennis Finn from 9 Abbey Road, and we have a representative of the stadium here. One of the issues that we find more problematic is the after-concert concerts. Very often, I don't know, I'm not up there, but maybe when the crew is cleaning up, or maybe the band decides they want to practice some more, but there are times we have a concert will all of a sudden start up at 1 in the morning. I think I remember 1 or 2 in the morning. So I don't know if there's anything you all could do about those. We would appreciate it.
Okay.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Any more from the audience? No? Come on up. Oh, do you want to come up and speak?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I was just waiting.
Wow. Hi. Okay, we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Under discussion, I do have a question, and seeing Mr. Lawton here, and it was brought up. Looking back at the stadium agreement, the Putnam Road entrance, and I think a lot of the aggravation that the locals have is the traffic that goes in and out of there. The noise is sometimes secondary, but the day-to-day stuff when there's a concert is not being able to use North Street. From my reading of the lease agreement, it says all football events, all soccer events, and 6 events of 50,000 or more can use the Putnam. After that, you need a special permit from the planning board. I've lost track of the count, but are we over the 6? And do you have a special permit to use Putnam after that? Or am I reading the agreement wrong?
This is the 7th, this is the 7th concert. This is the 7th concert date. I don't know, we've had 2 back-to-back shows, which were issued under a single license, so I don't know how that would affect the verbiage in the lease.
Okay.
And honestly, I can't speak to the
Yeah,
intricacies of it, so I wouldn't want to go.
So could you do me, or I had brought this to the attention of town manager, can you check on that? And the reason I'm bringing it up tonight is, actually someone came to my house because they couldn't get to their business on North Street, knocked, at my door and said, "Can you help me?" I texted the police chief, and I actually called the Stadium Advisory Hotline because I didn't have an outlet to figure it out. What happened was there was no police detail on the North Street, Payson Road, and Cross Street, and there's always been one there the last couple of years, and things are changing. I know North Street and different areas, they change it every time to or potentially change it every time to figure out if it's a game or a concert. But the answer I got back was we were understaffed and couldn't put a police crew there. And as a result, it was gridlock on North Street. And so when this person came to my house, she was trying to get to work, couldn't get there, very frustrated. I drove down there. And while I was sitting at that business, twice ambulances and fire trucks came by with their sirens blaring for the people to move to the side. So paramount to me, living in that area, but seeing the frustration, is Putnam Road. So if it's licensed with special permit or under that number, that's fine. But if it's over the requirement of what's in the lease, it needs a special permit. And then the second one is, my recommendation is to talk to the police chief, and if the answer is we're understaffed, how can that be if it's a planned concert and we change it to the detriment of the North Street, where I think a lot of the aggravation is. And before the meeting closes, for the record, I was not at the first meeting, but in order to vote, I had to watch the whole
meeting, so I did watch it live, the video, and I'm prepared to vote tonight, even though I wasn't at the first meeting.
Motion made to close the public hearing. It was seconded. Jim's comments and discussion. All those in favor to close? Okay. We spent a lot of time recently on extensions and curfews, and I think it's time that it's really not well spent. I think we need, as a board, need to look at this going forward, and come up with something that works not only for the residents in that area of town, but also MPS. It's a complicated relationship, but if we want to foster that relationship and create a true partnership, I think we have to work together to make something that works for everybody involved. Now, I appreciate everybody's comments tonight. I appreciate the emails, both pro and against. You know, it's not an easy decision. It really isn't. And yeah, we're only talking about 15 minutes, but we're talking about, you know, people within that neighborhood. So with that, can I have a motion on the application for the Bruce Springsteen concert with a start time of 7:30 with an end time at 11:30?
So move to accept NPS's request for a Bruce Springsteen concert with a start time of 7:30 and an end time of 11:30 per their application.
I'll second that.
Motion made.
Under discussion, I think what you're trying to say is make a motion to approve it, not to accept it.
Approve.
Approve it.
Approve. I apologize. Approve the licensing request.
You do that again.
Okay. I move to approve NPS's licensing request for Bruce Springsteen concert for the 14th of September to start at 7:30 and to end at 11:30 per its application.
I will second that.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Thank you.
And to echo George's sentiments, I appreciate everybody's handling of last week's meeting, and I was really relieved, and I know Mike would be okay with me sharing this anecdote. He called me on Saturday morning and said, you know, Jess, I feel terrible, but I'm home, and everybody told me you were really worried about me, and I said, yeah, Mike, I was. I mean, everybody was really worried about you, and he said, yeah, you know, I died at that table. And I said, yeah, Mike, I know, I was sitting next to you. I know. So he's home and he's recovering, and thank God that everything was worked out as serendipitously as it did. So thank you.
Good, good. Thank you.
Closing?
Yep.
Move to close the meeting.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any discussion? Nope. All those in favor? Aye. Good night, everybody.